Good afternoon to all my colleagues. Thank you very much for taking the time on this beautiful day to join us. My name is Yahya Darashti. I am from the Board of Director of PICRA. I'm also one of the co-founder of the association. I have the pleasure of hosting this webinar this afternoon with Mr. Tabrizi. I've known Steve for the past many years, and from when he was a young man with hair working in Richmond Hill. He is currently in the leadership team of Remax Hallmark, and he is also one of the co-owner of the Hallmark. He is one of the most knowledgeable real estate broker in our market today. So please help me welcome Mr. Steve Tabrizi. Steve, good afternoon to you. It's all yours.
Thank you very much, Yahya, for a great introduction. I'm honored to be here. I have watched PICRA from the day of inception, how wonderfully it grew to a fantastic organization currently, and the current leadership team in PICRA. I couldn't be any prouder than I am today that they have done a fabulous job, in particularly during this COVID-19, how fast they have come together and they embrace the technology, and on a weekly basis, they have been probably the most active association in terms of ethnicity and background, and they are providing the results for tools and presentation that your members they need. My presentation today will be a two-part. One part, I try to be very brief about what happened to our market. And then my second part, I will segue into connecting the behavior of the market as how we should act and how we should basically change our attitude and tools and behavior in terms of becoming successful even in a crisis like this. So let's begin. Let's me share my window and then we go from there. Just give me 2 seconds. Do you see my? Yes, here we go. You got it. Okay, so let's talk about the resiliency of our market. So why GTA has been through so many crises, in particular Ontario, because it's called the center of universe in Canada, and has survived. It is the economic growth and engine of this country. Immigration and global investment is basically play a large role in this province. Toronto by itself is a 7th city out of the 140 most livable cities in the world by the 2019 ranking. And the ranking comes in multiple categories: education, health, employment opportunities. And although we think that Toronto is a sort of an old demographic city, but average ages in Toronto and Ontario is 39. So it's a quite young and vibrant. Almost 57% of the population are millennial. Largest contributor to the Canadian economy, which we will talk about it more in depth in the next few slides. It has been predicted by 2041, it will have a population of an increase of the population of the 2.8 million, which is roughly right now is sitting at about 6.5. So it's estimated to be almost close to about 10 million. So what happened to the housing market before the COVID-19? So over a decade, we had a tremendous steady growth. We had almost about 131% increase in a decade. So if you take a look at it, average has been basically a double digit. We had a chaos in 2017 by unheard prices, by malpractice of the lending through particularly the Home Trust, one of the subprime lender. And then we had slew of the government intervention, and the most important one, which really caused our market to derail for a short period of the time, was a stress test. Before the COVID-19, we had 49% increase in the condo site development. We had 219% increase in the rental apartment sites. And the last two figures are just for the first quarter of the 2020. So I want you to visualize and understand when we came into the COVID, how robust and how vibrant our market was. We had an increase of about 211% on a new condo sold in the first quarter, almost about 4,665 units. So COVID-19 happened. I like to refer to the COVID-19, not a financial crisis, not a health crisis. I like to refer to it as a disruption. And this disruption, it wasn't similar to the 2008 financial crisis. This is actually an artificial disruption. And usually in any disruption, when a disruption comes to any kind of market, any kind of the business, you will see three elements will happen among the consumers. First, the market collapse. Then you watch and the behavior of the consumers, their reaction, and from the reaction, the mindset towards the uncertainty. So what happened in the collapse? Around early March of this year, the equity market, which is basically referred to the stock market, it basically had a free fall, almost dropped by about 30 to 35%. Then slowly we noticed the shutdown of the non-essential services. So suddenly the society was told, that's why I like to call it as an artificial disruption, because there was a third-party force behind it, which is the government, basically created a mandate by issuing the emergency services on March 23rd, that basically non-essential services must be shut down. So as soon as the non-essential services are shut down, then you have reduced work hours. So now the employees are sitting at home and they are out of work. And employers are basically all scrambling, wondering how long this will last. Then you have the shutdown of the Canada borders. Why it's very important that we look at the shutdown of the Canada borders? Beside the health mandate, which was very important to do it, you basically stop the flow of the immigrants coming to Canada. And as you know, immigration has been a big part of the Canadian economy. Every year we receive almost about 350,000 applications. And we haven't even met the quota of the approving 350,000 people. Maximum we have been able to do only about 250,000 people. And Ontario will benefit almost about 170,000 of those people are arriving here. Whatever number of the approval cases that they had their PR card and they were supposed to arrive, now they are in a backlog. So from the top four elements, now we have job losses because the employers, they are realizing, okay, I can pay you for maybe a month or 2 months, but now they have to temporarily lay off people. Two other elements basically caused a derailing in our market. They took away the ability from a realtor to do open houses. Open houses were suspended and private showing to a bare minimum. So our industry for years practices on two elements. And one of the two elements that basically we prospect was through open house and also showcasing the MLS listing or the properties through the showing. So we were basically told that we can prospect in those two modes. And the last mode, which was the private showing to bear to the minimum, also caused that whatever prospecting in terms of the farming or door knocking that we were doing was also halted. So around the same time, now we want to go from the collapse to the reaction of the market that we saw. And now around the same time, they did a survey among the consumers. Abacus Data is one of the reputable survey company in Canada and does a tremendous survey among the consumer. Before, just at the earliest stage of the, probably I would say end of the March, first week of April, they did this survey and they asked consumers, last time you went to a grocery store, and you notice this is now the reactionary mode. 79% of the consumers, they basically says they've been in a grocery store. Why they did the survey? If you recall, People were basically hoarding the toilet paper. They were buying dry food, pastas, and everything. Consumers' reaction was, oh, something going to have a major happen, and I better store as much food or money or gas that I can. And this is something natural that happened in any unforeseeable crisis that is artificial. It happened during the Second World War. It happened in the Middle East when there was a war in Iran and Iraq, and now it's happened also in Canada. So they also asked the people, how do you feel about the COVID-19? 65% of the consumers, they said worse is still to come. So people were really pessimistic and they were not hopeful about what's going to happen. So now let's take a look at COVID-19 and compare COVID-19 to the financial crisis of the 2008. What I like to do, and SARS. What's the purpose of this slide? I want to bring it back to the first slide and showcase you that the resiliency of our market. In 2003, which the SARS happened, SARS didn't happen at the scale of the COVID-19. So I agree and I admit to that point that the SARS has not happened to the scale that the COVID-19 has happened. But even during that time, SARS was deadlier than the COVID-19. COVID-19 through the prevention can actually be cured. SARS, if you research it, the virus was much more deadlier than the COVID-19 virus. But the sales declined by approximately about the minus 10%, but the house prices increased by 6%. And everybody asked what happened during the SARS, the same thing that happened right now in our market. So in our market, if there was 100 listing on the market, almost 60 to 65% of the people, actually the stats came out today, it's exactly 59% reduced sales activity at the early stage of the April versus the April, because the April was the most robust month in 2020. So you take those listings that the consumer chose to either suspend or terminate the listing, and they were basically watching the market, because now we are in an uncertainty mode. But why the prices increasing? Because the demand still was there and the supply was really still below the demand. In 2008, which wasn't an artificial, which people were predicted what's happening, and unfortunately there was no stimulus package from the government. The stimulus package, they came really almost 6 months later, if you recall, mostly with the US when Obama was elected, and he came up with the housing stimulus and mortgage stimulus. But the GTA prices from the October of the 2008, which was the crash of the Lehman Brothers, were down, and the home prices was declined by 13%. And if you take a look at the prices average, the price index from 300,000, from 377,000 dropped to 300,000. But almost in January of the 2009 had a V-shaped rebound. What they refer to the V-shaped rebound, that we had basically a sharp drop and sharp up. And only reason that the Canada managed and weathered the 2008 financial crisis, I'm not sure if you recall, late Minister of the Finance, Jim Flaherty, he actually approached all the 5 banks, the big banks in Canada, and he asked them one question. He said, I will provide the stimulus package for all the 5 banks. Contrary to what US did with delay, Canada acted immediately as long as the bank continued their lending practice, meaning the capital should be on the free market. And that's basically caused that the home prices climb back to 365,000 versus their peak of the 377, which is even about less than about a 2% drop. So let's take a look at the home ownership rate in Canada. Almost 68% of the Canadian are homeowner, and 40% with the mortgage, 28% of them are without the mortgage. That's really showcased that the Canadian always, they have practices safe home ownership, and they have enough equity in their home. That's a really assuring part during the crisis that we are now facing. It's not similar to the US or our southern border neighbor, that the attitude of the home ownership, you leverage your mortgage to the maximum, and you basically, you have no equity in your home. And when the crisis happened, exactly similar to 2008, what happened, they basically dropped their keys and they said, who cares, Mr. Bank, this is your house, because there was no risk for them to give the keys to the banks and to the lender. Canadians are always proud that basically they want to pay off their mortgage. And another group within the Canadian demographic is the Canadian Iranian, that basically they're also practicing the same pattern. So now let's take a look at how important real estate for the Canadian economy. Canadian economy up to about 5 or 6 years ago was heavily relied on the resources, natural resources, oil and gas from Alberta. Unfortunately, due to the mismanagement and bad management and policy in terms of the pipeline that should have been done a lot earlier, coming from Alberta to the water and making the Canadian oil resources connected to the global market rather just tied to the south neighbor. So we lost that momentum. What happened to the Canadian market? The Canadian market in the last 5 or 7 years became more a global investment and innovation market. And one of the area that heavily grew was the real estate rental and leasing, and all the related area to the real estate. One of the heaviest related area is the construction, and you can see also healthcare, finance, and insurance. If you add up all those numbers, which they are in billions, almost you will see 20% of the 2 trillion of the Canadian GDP is related to the real estate. When the Canadian government, and in particular the provincial government, came up with the list of the non-essential businesses, everybody about a month and a half ago was laughing that why real estate industry is being considered as a non-essential. And the notion in the market was, because we have some pending deals, some people have sold, they have to buy or reverse. No, the reality, the Canadian government and the provincial government realized how important it is to keep the engine of the real estate going forward, because it represents anywhere between 20 to 25% of the GDP of this country. It wasn't because of the pending transaction. So look at how Canada has done. So one of the other reasons, today is the 22nd of the May, 1 day short of the 2 months of the emergency shutdown. And as of basically this Tuesday, May 19, we went to the big phase of one of the reopening, which was basically opening of the retail store in plazas that they have a outdoor access to public, and they can control the traffic. So in 8 weeks, we managed to basically flatten the curve and basically be starting to have towards some normalcy. And one of the reasons is, similar to 2008, Canadian government really came strong with the stimulus package. First week, there was some uncertainty among the federal government, one of them the 10% only on a subsidy wage. And as soon as Europe, the 2 major countries, one was Denmark, one was England, that basically announced 75 to 80% of the subsidy, Canada followed suit. And we cannot compare the size of our economy or density of the population even to US, although in this map you see the US, but let's take a look at the Germany, which is probably the #1 robust G20 economy, and their density is 2.5 times higher than us. They only contributed so far about 189 billion in terms of the stimulus package. China, which is probably 10 times bigger than us in terms of density and everything, it's only 169 billion, and Canada is 145 billion. So Canada overall, federal and provincial, has done a great job in terms of the stimulus package, and the biggest infusion was the 75% subsidy for the labor force, even is for a short period of the time. And also now they are offering the commercial relief also for the small businesses, which is going to be huge for the reopening stage. We watched at our company, we watched heavily the market. We want to know what segment of the market, what price range of the market basically has been impacted. If you take a look at this, the darker orange is April of 2020, and the lighter orange is February of the 2020. And as you can see, up to almost the price range of the $1 million, actually the market in April outperformed the February of this year. As soon as we went to the upper end market, luxury market, and the luxury market from the different pocket of the city is different. Somewhere in the C12 area and C14 area, it's over 2.5 million or over 3.5 million. Somewhere in York region, it could be above the 1.5 million. So, but almost about 65% of the market still is performing really well. We watched the same thing with the condo market, up to about $700,000 price range of the condo. The activity was healthy, the demand is there, and there's a shortage of the supply. But as soon as you go on a higher price range, you notice there's a small decline. We also take a look at what happened to segment of the age factor within our market. In one of my presentation about a few weeks ago, I specifically talk about the millennial and a younger generation, why the millennial are very important to watch during this crisis. Before the COVID, almost 57% of our market, first-time buyer or upgrading market from the condo to the freehold was populated by the millennial. The millennial are at the age and at the category that they want, majority of them, they want to create a family, they want to have children, and they have a dream of having a house. Doesn't matter, it could be a townhouse, it could be detached or semi. We notice the job losses. We noticed that they are basically 64% of the market before the COVID-19. And then we were worried for the unemployment rate. So we take a look at what percentage of the unemployment, the temporary unemployment that was released last month, which is about 2 million in Canada. You got to remember, before we went to the COVID, we had a 1 million unemployed people, which was representation of about 5.2%. And now we are sitting anywhere in the range of about 8%. There is a prediction that there was a prediction that it might go to about 11 to 12%. But now with the reopening, I can assure you that it will not go to those double-digit number, because people and employers and companies are recalling their employees. One of them is our company, that we are basically recalling the people that we had to temporarily lay off. Because under the employment law, you cannot terminate their job. You'll have the right to terminate their job, but it will cost you in terms of, if they are long-term employees, in terms of the servants package and a certain number of the weeks that you have to pay. But back to the segment of the millennial and the younger generation in the age of anywhere between about 25 to 44, we notice only about 170, 180,000 job losses, which represent about 8% of that 2 million. And that's a really comforting news, because majority of the millennial, because they are highly educated and they have good professional jobs, so they haven't lost their job, and they have adopted to work at home on a remote areas much more faster than the baby boomer. So that segment, we haven't lost it in our market. And that segment, actually, before the COVID-19, they were quite upset with the unaffordability issue in Canada, and in particular in Ontario. And many of them, if you interview them right now, they feel that they got the upper hand, that they got opportunity, that they can basically take the home ownership to the next level and buy properties at a better price, and they have a better negotiation strategies. So Abacus did a survey just at the beginning of the COVID, and then Abacus did a survey almost at the end of the April. And it's basically asking the consumers, do you feel comfortable in terms of opening up the economy? 83%, they basically say as long as the precautionary measures are in place, they embrace it, and they will love to go back to work. So take a look at the two high-risk factor, visiting a shopping mall. Almost 66% of the people, they said they would visit it. And if they look at the same survey, almost about 6 weeks prior to this, it was completely reversed. Back to the offices, 71% of the people, they said they would love to go back to the offices and basically get back to the normal life. So we talk about in general about the economy. Let's see what the coronavirus has ever changed in terms of the client conversation. You are living in an era that the conversation with your client is the most important element of your business. Consumers, we did a survey with a lot of our showing that we have done in our company on behalf of our agent and asking the consumers that what is their number one concern in terms of allowing the showing happen to their homes. And the number one concern was, how would you protect the health of my property? It's a new terminology, the health of my property. And when you talk also to the buyer, they were asking the realtor, how would you protect and how would you handle the procedure of going, seeing the properties when I'm used to see these properties for years, and now you're telling me go see them through the virtual showing, or maybe select 7 of your home through the virtual showing and the last 2 or 3 we go for a physical showing. So the conversation has changed. That's one aspect of the fundamental structure of our business. And the other conversation is now uncertainty. The buyers are asking you, should I buy now? Do you think the market would drop more? Can I qualify? Do I have the security with my job? The seller, the same thing. Is it the best time to sell? Do I have the negotiating power on my side or not? So the more you are versed and equipped with the knowledge and information, you'll have a better hand of the conversation in terms of advising your client. So how to stand out during the long term of this COVID-19 or even after that? Change is inevitable and growth is optional. So you have one option here, basically, to my humble opinion. You can watch as many Zooms, as many training that is possible on this planet, and you can see during the last 8 weeks from every coaching companies that you can see, and some of the brokerages out there, they are providing you an excellent service, excellent information, and when some of the association, such as PCRA, trying their best to bring you the fresh information and up-to-date information for you. But it's up to you if you want to make the move. The first move is from you. I like to refer to this that the relationship don't dry up. The relationship, we built up our business for years on the basis of the relationship. Now we feel that we are in prison and we basically don't have the ability to build that relationship. The relationship for us, the definition of the relationship was okay, I got to go meet the clients. I got to have a coffee with the client. I got to invite the client to my office. That's, yes, does exist, but that doesn't mean the relationship has dried up. If you recall, about 2-3 years ago, many companies, one of them very famous and large company in US called Zillow, they were advertising that the technology will replace real estate agent. This pandemic proved more than ever that the agents, the human interaction, is a necessity, not only in the real estate business, in any business. Look at the car dealership, look at the stores, look at the retail, look at even insurance advisor, doctors and everything. But we have now a new terminology of the human interaction. If we used to rely on a 10-15% on a technology, an email and a PDF or a text, now the embracing of the technology is at 35% and a 65% is still human interaction. What is the human interaction? One of the human interaction is what we are doing right now. You want to call it Zoom, you want to call it other platform. Consumers, they love to see that face impression, that human reaction. They like to look into your eyes and when they're asking you the question, and that's a relationship. So you actually, to my opinion, lucky, you basically now can 10 times the rate of your relationship during this pandemic versus the old days. How many appointments, how many face-to-face meetings you could have? 2 or 3. In the last 8 weeks, I have done 412 Zooms. Do the math. It was literally impossible for me if I could have done 412 Zooms in 8 weeks. Probably would have taken me 2 to 3 years. And I feel I'm more connected to the people that I'm talking. Doesn't matter, friends, agents, colleagues, coaches. So the future is changing. And that's why I go back that the change is optional. And that option is only either you say yes to it or you can say no to it. So let's take a look at the first law of the motion of the Newton. A body at rest will remain at rest unless an outside force acts on it. The outside force for us right now is a COVID-19 and us, your own self-drive. I cannot emphasize more on this, that I have watched many presentations in the last 8 weeks. I can basically look at through the Zoom, through the faces of the individual, that who is really embracing it, who is saying, okay, you know what, the game plan hasn't changed, the prospecting hasn't changed, the concept, the conceptuality of what we used to do is the same thing, but the tools and the way we are doing it is different. So the force from the outside was COVID-19. The force from outside, they're paralyzing the way we used to do the business, but you need to act. You need to make moving forward. You don't have no alternative, no other options. So a body in motion at a constant velocity, this is second part of the Newton motion law, will remain in a motion in a straight line unless acted upon by the outside force. So you need to create a momentum for yourself. You know, how you create the momentum for yourself. I have watched many of the P-Cross presentation, and one of the presentation, it talks about reaching out to your database. That's your momentum. But you're sitting and you're wondering, I haven't talked, let's give an example. I haven't talked to Steve for 3 years or 2 years. And what should I do? What should I call? One thing that we have on our side, it's called economy of the care. The best thing you can do, the best apology that you can offer right now is all days when you had to make a call, probably those consumers that you were not in touch with them, they were wondering why you're calling me. Right now, you got the best excuse, economy of the care. We labeled it as economy of the care. You're calling to making sure, are they doing okay or not? And from one conversation to another conversation, they may talk to you about their mortgage deferral. They may talk to you about their struggle. They may talk to you about they lost their job. Those are the questions that you have to ask. And that's why we relate to it as the economy of the care. From the caring approach, you will drive to the economy of the care, which basically give you the opportunity and the momentum to build extra business for yourself. So why is it important to stay in training? Unfortunately, some of you know me for years. I'm a straightforward individual. I say it the way it is, and some people don't appreciate it. Some people do appreciate it. A lot of us, we think that training is an optional expense in our business. Training is not a variable expense that you basically going to say, no, you know what? I don't need it. I don't need to get coached. I don't need to go to the P-Cross seminar. I don't need to listen to all their efforts that they are doing. I don't need to implement them. Training is a fixed expense. Anybody in any business, doesn't matter, real estate, auto industry, technology, stop learning, you stop moving forward. You basically plateau your cap. Yeah, you make certain earning, but you will never go past that earning. And there is also a big element in training. You can attend many training. Are you implementing it? So how to stand out? Again, we go back to and long after this pandemic. So you really got to showcase your unwavering commitment to the client during this time. This is the time that if the client does not feel and sense that your economy of the care approach is genuine, you have lost and burned the bridges for years to come. Even a year from now, if we come successfully, which we will come successfully out of this COVID-19, if you don't show to them right now, if you are in the business 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, if you have a database of 100 or 1,000, or if you just have a circle of friends and you haven't even done business with you want to call them clients or friends. If you don't show your unwavering commitment to the client care, you will be never forget and they will never deal with you. But if you show it also in their mind, in their psychology, you become their hero. Emphasize service over selling. The service over selling has become the most important part of our business going forward. They are scared. There is uncertainty. They don't know how to react. They rely on your decision to guide them through this storm. Embrace the new tech. If you don't do it, and it's unbelievable, the tech, the tools that they are free out there, free. I cannot believe it. Before the seminar start, I was talking to Ali from the Remarketer. I have to also thank them for their services as always, supporting Pikra through the learning curve and through all these courses. I was just talking with each other. I said, imagine Zoom. Zoom is on the stock market. Their stock probably has gone through the roof. They never would have imagined that many people will embrace the video conferencing. So embrace the technology. You cannot stay away from it. You cannot just say, oh, I cannot do it. This is not me. It's not about you. It's about those clients. So hone your emotional intelligence. Manage yourself. You're scared. I was scared too. First week when it happened, you know, a lot of people also, I heard this comment, so I should talk about it. A lot of people, they said, oh, Steve, you talk from the position of the comfort and a power, or you talk from a position of basically you are in a different game than us. That's where you're wrong. The bigger the companies they are, the bigger the producer in your industry it is, the bigger the team is in your industry, the bigger their risk is much more higher than individual agent with maybe a production of the $75,000 or $100,000. They have much more to lose. Okay, so you got to manage yourself. Everybody manage itself to their own perspective. The millionaire guy, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Facebook, everybody has its own risk, but you have to learn to manage yourself and how you keep yourself on a daily basis positive. Manage the client's expectation. You don't have the answer to everything. Don't try to be the jack of all trades. Don't try to tell them everything that you know. Offer them that you will do the research. Showcase the resiliency. Resiliency only comes through leading your client, leading your team, leading your partner in this crisis. If you go home with your better half, with your partner, one of you has lost a job, one of you still is employed, or if you used to spend certain time of the hours in the afternoon with your family, but now your industry require you that you lead more and you spend time more, have an open communication, because this is the time that you probably got to work 3 times more. I was talking to one of the agents the other day, and it says, one showing, one buyers, we could have basically come to a conclusion and a successful conclusion in about a week or 10 days. And it was telling me, Steve, with one buyer, I had to do 3 offers, cancel 1 offer, and it took me about 4 weeks. You're lucky. Take a look at your average income versus the average income of the household in Ontario. A couple in Ontario, household, husband and wife, couple, partners, they make $87,000. The average income of a mediocre agent with 5 transactions, with 6 transactions, every 2 months 1 transaction, an average commission of the $15,000 in this city right now is $80,000 or $90,000. Think at the end of the storm too. You have to think every day there will be end to this storm. You have to think the positive. You can't just watch the media, watch the stats constantly all the time. Oh my God, why the rate of the infection from a 350 went to the 400, the 400 went to 425. Those are the negativity. COVID is going to be here for a while. Get used to it. This is the time that you basically need to basically adjust your lifestyle. You know, it's interesting, if you travel to Far East, Japan and China before the COVID-19, many of the Japanese, they wear masks because of the pollution, because of the protecting themselves for the health, because the demographic, the average age in Japan is high. So they're used to it. Okay, we got to wear masks. We got to have a different type of the showing. So that shows our resiliency and adapting, and we're also embracing that there is an end to it. 4 reasons you need to keep pushing forward. We have to know more because knowing more is basically give us the ability to learn. So knowing more drives you to serve your customer better. We want to know more. Make sure you basically dig into as much information that is out there to serve your client. You need to know about the tools. You need to know about the state of the economy. You need to know about the legal clauses that may apply during this COVID-19. You may have to be the mediator and the arbitrator between your investor client and their tenants. So you basically gotta equip yourself with more information and more knowledge than ever. Number 3, new innovation will come from this. Those individuals that they're tool themselves, they gear themselves with the new ideas, with the new tech tools from these crises, they will be a top-notch realtor at the end of this crisis. Anybody who raised to the occasion during these crises, rather than basically sitting on the sideline and said, okay, I got some saving, that's okay, I will weather it, and then I will see what happened. They will not be on a new game when after the COVID-19 or the new change that is going to happen. Most realtors, we have a passion for service. If you do have a passion, this is the right strategy for you. Some of you really don't have a passion for it. My honest opinion is, you know what? If you don't have a passion for it, don't try to do something that it doesn't really drive you, because you cannot fake it. Passion is natural. If you love this business, you want to do it. If you're going to showcase it that you're doing it only for the money, consumers will notice it. And number 1, we're doing this for our families. You know, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this. I'm making sure our company is ahead of the game and ahead of the pack, because I want to continue provide the best for my family. It's not about the money. It's about the previous slide, about the passion. And you basically feel obligated that you must lead. So 5 lead generation activities that will help you during this business. Engage your sphere of influence. If you haven't done it, you must do it. I have watched many of agents out there that they have done it perfectly and they have created transaction. I share a story with you during these crises. You know, physical distancing, social distancing, whatever you want to call it. Many of us, we do now Zoom party, we call it. You know, Persian, Iranian are famous for their parties and their social gathering. So I started having a bunch of friends, and every Sunday I do Zoom. And first I had this group and then the other group. And then finally I said, let's have everybody knows each other during the Zoom conference. It's funny, I don't sell, buy or list anything real estate for quite some time right now. But the question that they come through those Zoom, everybody talks about the fun and everything else, but also suddenly now we have those really constructive conversation. Those constructive conversation, we used to have them basically when we were going to each other parties, a group were sitting at the corner of a living room or family room having gas. Now we're having on a Zoom. And those conversations are all now, from me, it's about how is the real estate market? How is the state of the market? Where do you think it's going to happen? Don't you think so? We should downsize. Something has happened also to your sphere of influence. Learning lesson during this crisis. Many people are asking themselves, do I really need this big house? Do I really need to live in Toronto? Maybe I had to leave to Pickering. Do I need to have the 3 condo investment? Maybe I should sell 1. So those are opportunities for you. Embrace the social media. Social media is not for just liking and disliking and sharing only your personal stuff. Social media is about now content. Start writing. You don't have to be a perfect writer. Okay, you can write in Farsi, you can write in English. You gotta write substance. Don't try also to pick side on a social media. Social media is a neutral. You know your boundaries. You know your boundaries is real estate. Try to comment about that. Try to share proper information. A few days ago, there was an announcement by CMHC about a report of Canada that the 18% the prices will drop. You have the obligation through the social media to analyze that report and talk about it. If you don't do it, your sphere of influence will get a different impression. Learn how to use the video. I'm sorry, if you don't like it, too bad. I love writing. I love to maybe do presentation in front of the live audience. I wasn't really a big fan of the video, but you know what? Who cares? Who cares you look good or you don't look good, or your setting behind you, your chair, your background, your lighting is good or not. People don't care about that. People, they care about the content, okay? Become adept at the video conferencing. You better learn the video conferencing, because many of your presentation, sharing the slide, your contract, you can go through a listing presentation better than going through a listing presentation at their kitchen table. Create a CRM action plan. Go back to the first one, sphere of influence, add it to your CRM. When you talk to the individual, what did they tell you? What was their frustration? What was their fear? What was their strength? And add it to your CRM. Do that continual follow-up. Market of the moment, script of the moment. This is the phrase that I learned a few days ago, and I shared it with some of my agents. The market in terms of the concept of our business has not changed, but the script of the moment has changed. If you used to call and say to a buyer, it's the perfect opportunity to buy right now because the rates are low, and if you don't buy, the prices are going through the roof, that script maybe is not working right now. You better find the right script. Don't lean away, lean in. Routine and rhythm. This is very important for your life. You better have a rhythm. Rhythm means that you wake up every morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, you brush your teeth. That's your rhythm. And routine, you do it every day. Don't overload yourself. Start with 3 items that you want to do every day. Pick. I was coached many years ago by Mike Ferry, so I'm going to share a very simple formula with you that impacted me when I was selling real estate. So 2 phone calls, 2 actual phone calls a day. If you work 5 days a week, that's 10 phone calls a day, 10 conversation, not dialing. If you work 45 weeks a year, that's 450 contact conversation. If you are the worst agent, that's what Mike used to tell me, and your rate of closure going for a listing presentation or having an opportunity of the listing presentation through the Zoom was even 30%, 450, 30%, 20%, I'll take it down for you, 10%, I take it 1 notch down. That's 45 presentation. Out of the 45 presentation, you are still the worst agent. 20% of them you manage to sign a contract. That's 8 contract. If half of those 8 contract they buy through you, that's 12 contract here. Very simple formula. So change the message with the script of the moment. Consumers, they want to understand the perspective of the moment, and you have the ability to tell them about the perspective of the moment. This pandemic, the last line is quite important. This is a pandemic which can shift to recession for you. When people talk about the recession, I don't care about the recession out there in the economy. I care about the recession for you. You don't follow up what I am telling you during this presentation, the recession will come to you, to your life, to your business. Don't blame the recession for outside. Recession is you. So if you don't follow up this. The positive of the post-pandemic. This is the positive already in place to always be part of a solution. So a lot of people during the initial stage of the pandemic, oh, I want this, I want that, why this doesn't happen this way, why that doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to be part of the solution because we are in the same boat. Look at the bank. I read an article that somebody on the social media, there was a huge commentary on that group, without mentioning the name of the group, that why the bank, they don't basically waive the interest. Yes, they defer the payment. Why they don't waive all the interest, all the fees and everything for the next 4 or 5 months too? It cannot be done because that's not a right solution. We need to be the guardian of the economy. In order to be the guardian of the economy, Go back to the slide of the 25% of the economy. It's in our hands, realtors. We make it happen. Now we're going to ask the bank, waive everything. We're going to ask the grocery store guy at the corner, don't charge me this. We're going to ask the landlord, oh, I'm not willing to pay you anything. It doesn't work that way. You got to compromise, be part of the solution. What's important, an old habit that will no longer work. All your old habits that you had a great market for 10, 15 years and made you, with all due respect, very lazy. The money was coming to you very easy. It's not going to come anymore. I guarantee you that. Some of you have seen a recession. Some of you have seen the crisis. Some of you I haven't. I have seen it in the last 25 years in this business. I've seen it twice so far. This is my third one. This is probably my worst one that I've seen it. This is not only my worst one. My partner, Ken, who's been in the business for 41 years, he also claimed this is the worst recession or pandemic that he has seen. And this is the crisis. But are we continuing with our old habit? No. Look at Picra is the best example. He used to do monthly seminar. From a monthly has shifted to the weekly presentation 4 times. Technology, embracing, reaching out to as many other people that they can. That's the habit that they have changed. They embrace it. So you better change those habits. To make more time for home project. Many of us stayed at home, spend more time. Obviously, we go home, no more socializing, no more going to the bar, no more going play soccer, playing golf, or you name it. So we are spending more time with the family, with the kids, with the better half, with the worse half, whatever we like to call it. You know, some of the project that we had at home and we keep saying, okay, I'll do it. I'll fix the deck. You know, so home project, family project. Now we are realizing what is really important in our life. Is it always been the focus on the money and be reactionary? No, it doesn't work anymore. The importance of staying in touch with everyone. This is a very important. I talk about the sphere of influence. Some of you are really maybe shy and timid to do this right now because you haven't done it on a regular basis, but this is a pillar. To continue Zoom meeting, to continue video meeting, that will stay with the rest of our life, I guarantee you that. The unity of the neighborhood and the community. Walk around your neighborhood, walk around your community, and you see how the country, how Canada really has collectively come together. I haven't seen 2 major parties in Canada, conservative and a liberal, ever been working so smoothly together. Do you see any bickering? Do you see any criticism? You see, but they don't push it as they used to push it because everybody is just going back to the first line. Everybody's saying basically, I better be part of the solution. One of the things that I did about a few weeks ago, it was suggested by my wife and I embrace it. Well, you know, you go for a walk. We said, how about we do every Friday, Friday food banks? And what we did, we printed flyers with our home address, with our phone numbers, and we didn't door knock. We just basically left it on the windshield of anybody's that their car was parked in their driveway. And some people, they were on the driveway. We were talking to them. It's interesting. I've been living in my neighborhood for 8 years. I walked my neighborhood probably, God knows, 500 times. But this time there was a different purpose. The purpose was having a conversation, economy of the care, how you were doing. We're collecting non-perishable food for the needy people. Imagine with the closure of everything that is happening out there, the shelters, the Tim Horton, the restaurants, all the needy people, all the homeless people used to get some sort of assistance from the business owner. They are not there anymore. I was blown away by the support of the community, how they are coming back together. And I'm thinking again back about the economy of the care. There were people asking me, what do you do for a living? Introducing yourself, casual conversation. So this is what's going to stay with us. The more you do this down the road in the future, past COVID, the more you're successful. I go back to the terminology of that you should be the hero of your community. My last comment for you. From Warren Buffett, fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. You want to survive? This is the opportunity when people, your competition, are fearful. If you also hide and you don't engage, there is no difference between you and those people who are hiding. People who are investing now more in marketing, in activities, in training, they will win the game. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, for this knowledgeable presentation. I certainly enjoyed it very much. And we appreciate your time. You've always been the reliable source for us to go to. Thank you. So we have, I think, Steve, we have some questions for you. Let me read it out to you. Simin is asking, are you not, can you not hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Steve, Simin is asking, with the economy going, a lot of people thinking that the economy is going to a halt. Do you think the market, the real estate market, will follow?
First of all, the word grinding to halt, it's a very severe comment. Halt means a stop. It can't. That means collapse of the economy. That means the bankruptcy of the Canada. And one seeming great news is that basically we are not in this boat alone. The entire global market is into it. So the economy is not going to come to a halt. The economy for sure will slow down for this quarter, next quarter, and start to rebound probably the first quarter of the 2021. This crisis is not worse than the 2008 financial crisis. In financial crisis, basically, they removed the ability of the people buying homes. The lending practice halted. Now the money still is on the street. The only issue with the economy is going to be the issue with the employment, particularly the small businesses, the retail. And those small businesses will be what I would call it a short hiccup, probably for about 6 months.
I have another question, Steve, from Mr. Ali Sadeghi. He is asking, CMHC is, I think you mentioned it in your presentation, he is asking CMHC is projecting 9 to 18% price reduction over the next year based on your data is that is recorded. What is your number?
So, CMHC basically came up with the report, which is the Canada-wide. So that's a problem because when you are including Alberta into it, so you are really taking away the right comparison to basically the upper market, lower market, soft market. Yes, there are going to be some higher end market, they probably will see a double-digit price reduction, and it will be maybe about anywhere between 10 to 12% luxury homes. But take a look at the perspective, 131% increase in the last 10 years. So take away maybe 15 points of it. So you're still on a positive note over a decade. So we probably see for our upper end market, we go back to the early prices of the 2016, end of the 2015. But for a soft market, and affordable market, which is anywhere between about 600 to $1 million, I won't see any drop prices. I'll see also some drop prices with the condo investment because probably the inventory will be a little bit higher than the demand because the investors are usually typically want to take advantage of the crisis and buy at the lower price.
So thank you, Steve. Simin is asking another question. House prices will fall at least 20% before recovery. What is your idea about that?
Again, that's a general statement. One problem that we have with our industry, which is the TREP and the other regulatory board, they come with the scale of the comparing of the average price versus segment by segment. See, I mean, if you want to really do a good analysis, my recommendation to you is neighborhood by neighborhood, type of the property. You have the ability to pull them by the stratus, and then you will see the activity, the ratio of the actual listing versus the actual transaction. And then you can give a better guess in terms of the drop. I wouldn't give it a 20% across, As I said before, I would give probably 10 to 12% for the higher end home, and I would give for the anywhere between million to two, anywhere probably about 4 to 5%, but below million will be major activity happening still.
Thank you, Steve. Nushin is asking, how do you see the housing market in the fall of 2020?
So March, 100% activity, we dropped to 30% activity. So from a 8-cylinder car to a 3-cylinder car. And we are watching. Watch at your company if they have that ability, the showing front desk platform. The showing shows you the engagement of the consumers. So in middle of the March, our platform indicated 4,500 showing a week. We went from the 4,500 to 1,200. And now we see in the last 3 weeks rebound very nicely. We're sitting at about 2,600, which is basically 55%. So we went from the 8-cylinder to 3-cylinder cars. Now we are about 4 or 5-cylinder. I see, Nushin, by fall, we are probably going to be about 65 to 70% performance. We won't be at 100% performance in 2020. Going back to 85 to 90% performance probably will be the early part of the spring of the 2021.
Thanks, Steve. I have one question from myself. A lot of people are worried that when this mortgage deferral from the banks expire and people have not gone back to work 100%, this may lead to people not be able to pay their mortgages and eventually lead to us seeing a lot of foreclosure. What do you think about that?
So, perspective of, again, the number. I love number. I love a stat. That's why I keep telling everybody, educate yourself. There are 9.1 million homeowner in Canada, 37 million population, 1/3 are homeowner, which is basically almost 65 to 70% of the population if the average homeowner is about 2 or 3 people. So out of the 9.1, 40% of them, they have no mortgage, zero mortgage. The other 6.5 million, only as of today, 12% of them applied for a deferred mortgage. And guess what? Many people, they don't need the deferred mortgage, but they just simply took advantage of the opportunity, and they're basically helping themselves in terms of the future cash flow. 12% of the deferred mortgage, we're talking about 500,000 people in the whole country. There will be some power of sale. There will be, for years, there was a discussion and talk about the affordability, and the Canadian, they're stretching themselves. There will be those individual that they stretch themselves too much. They will have a hard time. Either they have to offload some of their properties, or they will be going to receivership and the bankruptcies. That's created an opportunity for the other buyers. Don't look at, oh, we're going to have a power of sale. Power of sale is opportunity for a buyer. That means you can work with some of your investors to buy those power of sales. So I always look at it as an opportunity, and also look at it. We did the highest number of the transaction in a TREP 2016. We did about 100,000 transaction. And this year we were predicting to do about 95. I predict this year we're probably going to do about 70,000, which if you take the 10 years average, we're way above the 10 years average. The 10 years average is about 69,000 transactions.
Thank you. I have a question coming from Mr. Ali Bulurchi. He's saying Pier 1 will close all the 440 stores, and that's not the only one. Don't you think that these are not small retail stores that can affect the overall economy?
Yeah, Ali, of course it does. But you got to remember, who are the employer of those small retail? Mostly people, either they have a second job or they are in the segment, what we call them, because you got to always relate them to their average income. They sit in the average income up to below 35,000. They are in the rental pool. That's why in the rental pool, you will see a better pricing coming out, more inventory. Yes, overall impact the economy because the buying and selling factor, but go beyond the Pier 1 or all those has filed the bankruptcy too. you will see the mega company who is behind the multi-brand, they're basically diversifying. They're basically offloading some of their bad investment, which is a perfect opportunity for them to do it right now, and diversifying and amalgamating. Yes, it's going to be some hard times, some empty store. Commercial leasing will suffer for a while, but that's the price of the pandemic. That's the price of the crisis. And you got to look at it. This is something that is beyond our control. Is not by fault of any government or by any malpractice similar to 2008. Have no other alternative. And agents, to my opinion, I go back to the average income. If you are making 100,000, now you're going to make, let's say, worst case scenario, 50,000. If you're making 300, you're making $150. You're above average of the household income in Canada. So be thankful that you're healthy. We will come through this. It will be a 12 months tough road, but we will come out of it.
Thank you, Steve. I have another question from Ali Sadeghi of Remax Hallmark. Do you see, based on the social distances measures and the density of population in high-rise building, the trend of consumer to move away from the congested condo living to townhouses or detached homes?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. I'll see the movement going to the suburb. You will see the Durham, Barrie, Simcoe County in those two, West Hamilton, north part of the York region, Newmarket, East Gwillimbury, Bradford, those areas you will see better movement because of the affordability. The condo market below $700,000 will have a good movement, and the price of those condos has to adjust. And let's be honest with each other, it was getting ridiculous. I love steady, healthy market. I love those old market. And yes, we had to show 10, 15 houses to make an offer. We used to tell the customer, by the time we sell your home is 30, 35 days or 45 days. We used to tell the buyer, Mr. Buyer, it probably will take us about 45 days to find your dream home. We were getting out of control again this spring, early this year. In February, it's funny. The agent, they used to come to tell me, Steve, we're going back to 2017. And now we are saying, oh my God, what happened to us? So nothing happened to us. We're just getting a pause. And the pause, lower your expectation. Lower your expectation. That's what I am recommending to you. Yes, you need to going to work hard, but your hourly rate is $400 an hour. So work for your money.
I'm not sure how much more time we have, but I have another question from Sarah Khalili. If someone wants to buy or sell at the same time, is it better to do it now or waiting?
Buying market is a selling market. So there is no such a thing as sell now and wait and buy later, because the both market, they basically grab each other and the differential is always the same. You sell high, you buy high, you sell low, you buy low. Unless somebody just say, you know what, I want to cash out and I want to go to a rental market, that's a different story. But I'm sure as a realtor practitioner, you don't want to give that kind of advice to the people. Real estate is the best investment.
Thank you, Steve. I think this is the end of our questions. So I have one more question from Ali Buluchi. Do you think that the cost of borrowing will go up due to all these rental mortgage deficiencies and lack of cash to lend by the banks?
No, that's the only element and caveat that the federal government and provincial government doesn't want to cut from the industry. They want to inject more money, more money. That's why you notice the federal government released almost $80 billion of the money of the banks by securing them through the CMHC. You guys don't realize how CMHC is good it is. CMHC has had hardly any default, any major default. You're sitting on pile of cash. That's why they have the ability to insure those mortgages. And when you take away the liquidity from the market will suffer. So by what federal government has done, securing a huge bulk of the funding that the bank has, giving them more funding so they can lend. I don't think so, Ali, is going to happen. And I think the rate will stay low at least by till end of the 2021.
Thank you very, very much, Steve. By the way, I forgot to mention that you were one of the co-founder of PICRA, and I can see that you still have your passion after all these years. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank Corey Gorgani and Mr. Jalili, Mr. Sanii, who were all the co-founder of PICRA and helped and pushed forward this organization all these years. I would also like to thank Apostrophe Solution for all their hard work and support for these seminars. Also, I would like to mention that on June the 5th at 3 p.m., we will be having a session on landlord and tenant issues by Rita Tabrizi. It will be a very informative seminar, and I would like to ask all my colleagues to join us there. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for watching. It's been a wonderful, amazing seminar. Thank you again, Steve Tabrizi.
Thank you, Yahya. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.